here pretty soon. About 5 minutes until we get started, so if everyone would like to take their seats so we can get it going on time, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here.
So, guys, with the timekeeper is going to be sitting right here. Young lady in the high chair. A yellow card means 30 seconds, and a red card means wrap it up. Okay. Did you hear that, Rolando? Timekeeper right here.
Do we need this?
You just leave it there.
I think it's for that.
Whatever you would say will pick up audio.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
The yellow card,
As much as you can. It could be right here.
30 seconds, red card, wrap it up.
There's a people were kind of
Knock myself out.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
I'm just going to move this a little closer to you. This a little more closer?
Yes, sir. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's okay though. It's all right. Like somebody will claim it sooner or later.
The president's going to make some remarks before we start.
Great. Looks like there might be even one student here.
You think?
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Dr. Francisco Solis,
Ortiz, and I serve as interim president here at San Antonio College, so I want to welcome you to our campus. I also want to tell you how thankful we are that the Alamo College's bond has passed, and we look forward to the great work of the bond. We've got 70%. With a 70% approval rating from the voters, so thank you. I also would ask that you give a warm welcome to both of our candidates tonight. I so appreciate their participation on behalf of our 20,000 students here at San Antonio College and our 80,000 students at the Alamo Colleges, and our 1,000 faculty and staff here at San Antonio College. So again, have a wonderful evening. I look forward to the participation, and thank you again for joining us here on San Antonio College campus.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Solis. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Charles Mazuka here from the Department of Public Policy and Service. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's event. Thank you so much for coming. We are so thankful for you to be here and really excited to be down to two candidates to spend a lot of time with us this evening so we can finally get some extended conversation going from 27 to 2. I'm thankful and really appreciative of them, so let's give them a round of applause, please. And for this evening, I see we have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of signs, the room is filling up, so we appreciate the enthusiasm, but if so that you don't block the view from someone behind you in a row, if you can keep the signs on your lap, everyone would appreciate it. Thank you so much. Sorry to have to point that out, but some say I'm the bad guy, but forgive me, please. And this evening, I want to give a thanks to the San Antonio College Men's Club. They helped me flyer the neighborhoods of Alta Vista, Monte Vista, Beacon Hill, Tobin Hill, 5 Points, and we went door to door to get the community here. So the community's here, and thank you so much for coming. Yes. Also, special thanks to our faculty members, adjunct faculty member Ken Mireles, and business owner. He will be our moderator this evening. Special thanks to Brandy Martinez, faculty instructor, and from Student Government Association, Roxanne Barrera. And with that, Mr. Mireles, once I hand the mic over to Mr. Mireles, it is between Mr. Mireles and the candidates. So everything is going to go just fine. I'm sure you're going to enjoy the event. We're really excited to have you here. Thank you so much for your support here at San Antonio College. We're putting the community back in our community and our community college, and we're here to serve you. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for being here. Again, I want to mention that this is being hosted by the San Antonio College Department of Public Policy and Service, so welcome. I want to congratulate both candidates for a very hard-won victory on Saturday, making the mayoral runoff. Congratulations. So on behalf of the students and the faculty here at this department, thank you for attending tonight. I know it's a big ask to have you come here. I believe this is the first mayoral runoff forum or debate of the election. So I think we should all be very grateful that the candidates agreed to attend. Tonight's format is simple. I have 10 questions. The first 2 questions, both candidates will have 2 minutes to respond. On subsequent questions, I'll ask one of the candidates a question. They will have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidate will have 1 minute to make their response. If need be, we will allow the original questioner to have another 1 minute response to that. So I hope that's simple enough. We try to make it simple, but we'll see how that goes. Following this, we will open up the floor to questions from students only. So if there are students in the audience, if you want to start formulating your questions right now, that would be great. We have happy because we're here in an institution that serves students, and so we want to make sure that they get their voice heard. All right, so let's just get right to it. The first question that are going to vote for both candidates, although you have both held high-level government positions, neither of you have ever run for local office. What motivated you to make your first run for local office to run for mayor of San Antonio? And now that we're down to just 2 candidates, what sets you apart from your opponent? So, Ms. Ortiz,
Sure. Yeah, this is already ready to go. Well, I want to echo my thanks to the college for hosting us, and thank you all for making time. I am a proud product of the Far West Side. Is that on? Is that working? Is that good?
You might want to get some help on that.
I'm a proud product. Yeah, thank you.
Maybe try that one.
Is that better? Okay. Grew up on the Far West Side, went to John Jay High School. Proudly, though, and I think it's really important in these times, my family story starts with when my mom came to this very special country. My mom graduated from the #1 university in the Philippines. She came here as a domestic helper. She knew if she came to this country, even in that capacity, if she was willing to work hard, the sky is the limit. That is the cloth that I am cut from. She raised my sister and I by herself. Special place in heaven for single moms. I think that place is probably open bar, as it should be. But she reminded us that we were lucky, not smart, lucky to have been born in this very special country, and we'd have to give back. That's why I've been honored to dedicate my life to public service. As an intelligence officer in the Air Force, I'm a proud Iraq War veteran. I most recently served as the Undersecretary of the Air Force. It was an ROTC scholarship that took me from John Jay High School to Boston University. So I know the opportunities that I had to grow up healthy, get an education, serve our country, started right here in San Antonio. I'm actually a proud product myself of Alamo Community Colleges. I remember that macroeconomic class I took at Palo Alto that one summer. So I know how important it is that we support institutions like this and that we are being thoughtful not only about how we grow our city, but grow our city with everybody in mind. So again, I most recently served as the Undersecretary of the Air Force, managed 600,000 folks, managed a $173 billion budget. I look forward to bringing that service and leadership in service to our city. I've also, on my website, have been very transparent about the things I want to work on in the first 100 days. Because even if we had a different governor, different president, many of those challenges would still be there. So I think it's important we move our city forward with everybody in mind. I look forward to doing that.
Well, good afternoon. Yeah, we may have to use that. We'll share the microphone. How's that? Well, good afternoon. I'm so happy to be here. I want to thank ACCD and congratulate ACCD for its success. I also want to thank the other candidates that ran for mayor. They worked very hard. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. 27 people. Sometimes we had 10, 15 people on stage, and we had 30 seconds to express what we wanted to express. So if any of them are here, I want to thank you for your service and for your attempt to get in there and help this community. And I can guarantee you, you'll have another chance to get in there under my administration so you can help us out. Look, I came to San Antonio in 1985. I was born in Mexico. I came here to this country because my parents brought us here for a better life. They wanted us to earn the education they didn't earn. I was born to two wonderful parents, devout Catholic. They were both dentists in Mexico, and they sacrificed everything to bring us to this country. And the one thing they asked us to do is to make sure we got an education. And I want to let you know I didn't let them down. I've earned 5 university degrees, and I studied here at SAC. I was here every summer, whether I wanted to or not, to participate in some of these classes here. But it wasn't easy because I had to work and study. I worked in restaurants. I washed dishes. I served tables. As a matter of fact, that's how I got to meet my wife, Laura. We've been married for 30 years. We have a wonderful family. We have 4 remarkable children. And it is their responsibility to do better than us because my grandfather was a tenant farmer in Mexico. He had the opportunity to put my dad through school, and now our parents brought us here. And so what I believe is in that generational improvement that we all need. And so for all the students here, I want to congratulate you for coming to college, and I want to make sure that you get out of college and beyond. Education is the great equalizer, and I want to make sure that as your mayor, I help you find those opportunities to study, but also bring the employment opportunities to you. I have worked in government and in business, and I want to be able to bring that talent to the mayor's office. Thank you.
Well, if I give you all an extra minute, would you be willing to address why you chose to run for mayor in particular? And also address what sets you apart from your opponent? I can offer you at least another minute if you want to take it.
Yeah, I'm running for mayor to make sure our city is well led. I've got the leadership experience, the management experience to do that. I think I've also got the lived experience to make sure that we are being considerate of every community in our district. We have one of the highest rates of poverty in the community, and so that's why on my 100-day plan, one of the very first things I want to do, hey, city staff, help me understand how many kids, how much talent are we leaving on the table as a result of not fully meeting the need of pre-K in our community? And then show me what the bill is, right? I would argue, because if you tell me we've got more money for another publicly financed sports venue, then I know we have some money for some kids, right? This is an economic issue. I'm a proud product of all public education, but as we have a tax on education, both from the Department of Education and at the state level with this voucher scam that just passed, I think it's important that you know I'm a proud product of Title I schools. Title I schools. So I know it's the great equalizer. I know it's important for our economy. It's important for our democracy. And that's why I, as your mayor, would be focused on shoring up public education in any way that we can. It's no more, that's not our job. No. It is our job to make sure we are moving our city forward, and public education is part of that.
Thank you very much.
Well, like I said, I came here in 1985, and it was a much different time back then. And what I want to do, the reason I want to run for mayor is because I want to restore the promise of San Antonio. We still have our best days ahead of us. We just have to live towards that, and we have to make sure that we bring our kids up, that we protect our senior citizens. And here's what's the matter in San Antonio. We've had generational poverty for over 60 years, and we haven't addressed that. And that is a shame. We have to make sure that we take care of poverty first, because poverty is the root condition of all these issues that we have, like crime and homelessness, educational gaps. We have to make sure that we go to the root cause of these problems and not try to take care of these situations first. I will address generational poverty through aggressive economic development, quality education, and fiscal responsibility.
Somewhat addressed my second question, but I did want to ask it anyway because it has to do with your vision for what you envision for the city. If you're elected mayor, what would your vision be for our city at the end of your first term in office? What would you like to see, things that are not happening that you want to see happening? Mr. Pablos, I want to start with you.
I want fiscal responsibility. I want to know where our money's going. I want to know where taxpayers' money's being spent. Here's the problem. The problem is not a revenue problem. We have a spending problem in this city. We are focused on preferences and not priorities. We should be focused on basic services. Okay? We need to hire more police officers. We got to take care of our homeless. It's not fair that our senior citizens don't have air conditioning and we're giving them box fans. My goodness. But we're budgeting for bike lanes. We're budgeting for bike lanes. No, nothing wrong with bikes, but $8 billion for bike lanes is ridiculous. We have to make sure that we shift towards priorities and not preferences, and that's what I will do.
I think it's really important, given the uncertainty that is happening in our country, that we are protecting, we're making smart investments. We're also making sure that we're standing up for the most vulnerable, right? And so when we have, unfortunately, for example, both at the federal level, the attacks on the VA, the attacks on public education, I get my own care at Audie Murphy or the clinic on 151. So when the federal government is attacking those things that are so critical in our community for our veterans, I mean, this is Military City USA. 16% of us are either active duty or a veteran. I think it's really important that during these times we are standing up, we're making smart investments, and calling out the ways in which some of these policies are making us weak, frankly. I think it's also important when we're talking, if you want to address poverty, you know what you do? You pay people a living wage. Right? You pay people a living wage. I'm very proud to be supported by a number of unions. As we make and build our city, let's make sure that we are cutting people in, right? Let's make sure we've got transparency around how this money is spent, and that it's not enriching just a few in our community, but as many people as possible. I think it's also really important that when the federal government, for example, is attacking Social Security in our community, raise your hand if you are relying on Social Security right now, or you know somebody in your community that is. You know, that grandmother, that aunt that is raising, frankly raising their grandkids on that check. My own mom is relying on TRS, the Texas Retirement System. I think it's important we are protecting our seniors, and that requires standing up when you see attacks at the federal level or at the state level for those things. And I look forward to doing that. Again, also on my website though, those things I want to work on in the first 100 days. How are we also in making sure that we're investing in the next generation? Those schools that are closed in SAISD, right, because they're defunded. How do we make sure we can transition some of those to pre-K for SA or childcare? How can we make sure we're best supporting our teachers? Those are all the things that we need to act on, not just talk about, but make sure we're taking the steps that actually make the change that our community deserves.
My next question is going to be to Mr. Ortiz. Soon after being sworn in, the new mayor of San Antonio will lead City Council through the annual budget process. What will be your approach to the city budget, and what are your specific budget priorities, and how will you ensure all parts of our city benefit from your budget?
I think a budget is always a document that reflects your values, just like in your own life. Show me what you spend your money on, and I will show you what you care about. I also have a lot of experience in managing a large budget. I managed a $173 billion budget as the Undersecretary of the Air Force, and was managing several budgets at the same time, right? Because we do that's a multi-year budget process. I think it's really important that we, informed by the staff's analysis, help us understand where do we have some uncertainty. At this point, the federal government has said some of that money that we were counting on is not going to come to our community. So we have to work with the county to understand, just because that money doesn't come to our community doesn't mean those needs go away in our community. So we have to understand, okay, who is going to be left out? How does this affect what we are able to invest in and pay for? And let's make sure we're doing what we know we need to do first and foremost, which is keep our communities safe. Right, we've got to make sure our first responders have what they need. I'm an Air Force veteran. I know the #1 job of any leader is to keep our communities safe and make sure that those folks have those resources. So I think it's important that we do that. I'll be honest with you, I'm thinking about that budget. I'm also thinking about that 2027 bond. Right? We have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. That's going to be a major investment in our community. So we should be thinking as well about what that $1.9, potentially $2 billion bond is going to look like, and make sure we're investing throughout our city on those things that are, again, in an economic environment that is uncertain, where you have a lot of folks that might be suffering. It's really important that we also work with our community stakeholders, our community nonprofit leaders, for example, that are addressing these things. They have the expertise, and we've got to make sure we're not being redundant, we're being efficient with our dollars, effective with our dollars, and we have the data. We have the data that shows, hey, this is where we're going to have a better rate of return if we invest here. And oh, by the way, this money has gone away. This is how it impacts this community, and this is how we as a city are going to try to meet the needs in our city.
So I think we all agree that the government works for us and not the other way around. We have to make sure that we're focused on priorities and not preferences. Let me tell you what, the first thing I will fund is police and fire. They need every help we can get. We have to be a safe community, and for whatever reason, we haven't delivered on that. We continue to be a community that suffers from law enforcement lacks. I think that we need to focus on those priorities, and we need to deprioritize those issues, those pet projects that City Council has had as a priority this whole time. We have to make sure that we take care of our people. The mayor's job is to look out for the welfare of the people, not for pet projects. I will never take a knee to defund the police. I will tell you right now. We have to back the blue and work with our men and women to make sure that they know and they understand that they're appreciated. Right now, there is a morale problem with the police department. People don't want to be police officers. Our academy is lacking in recruits. So we have to focus on those things that are extremely important. I also want to work with our prosecutors, make sure that we are not soft on crime. Because a lot of the problems we have today is because people know there are no consequences. We've had our cars broken into 5 times at our home, nothing happens. Okay, so we have to make sure we send a loud message. We go after stricter sentencing guidelines to make sure that people understand that if they commit a crime, there will be repercussions. And right now, they don't feel that. Okay, so the other issue right now is the issue of qualified immunity. Police officers don't want to engage because they fear that they're going to either get arrested or get sued. We can't have that for our police officers. We have to make sure that we also focus on prevention. We have to take care of our youth. We have to invest in after-school programs, keep them out of trouble. But if we don't go to the root cause, we'll never get there.
When we have we were in an environment right now where it is needlessly uncertain. If you were to look at the ways in which costs unfortunately have gone up, people are looking with great concern at their retirement accounts. They're very concerned about what it's going to mean for them moving forward. I think it's important that we understand that when an economic environment is uncertain, you actually see more petty crime, right? And so as much as we can tell and work with our federal delegation and our state delegation to say, hey, this is what we need in our community. This uncertainty is actually making us all less safe because one, you don't know how far your retirement is now going to go because of these needless attacks on that. And oh, by the way, these attacks on our civil servants, firing veterans at the VA, attacking those services, making it harder to get an appointment, all of that makes us less safe. So I think we need a mayor that is going to focus locally, but also be very clear with the federal and the state level. Hey, these are how the things that you're doing are making us less safe.
Thank you. We're getting a lot of good information, so I'm going to call an audible and give you each 2 minutes on the response, and then I'm going to respond to that if necessary. So, Mr. Pablos, we're currently in an institution that works very hard to ensure that its students are prepared for the workforce of the future. You know an educated and skilled workforce is vital to a strong local economy. How will you, as mayor, help ensure that our youth have quality jobs and support with quality job placements long into the future?
So I have 25 years experience in economic development. I know how to bring investment to a community that's going to lift the economy. And the heart of it is our workforce. Companies look at a community and try to figure out if there's going to be a pipeline of qualified workers for them. And if there isn't, they're going to go somewhere else. We're seeing a lot of companies skip San Antonio and go elsewhere because they feel that other places provide that workforce for them. So we have to double down on workforce development, and it all starts with education. But it's not just at the college level. Pre-K through 12, we have to make sure that our kids and our parents are engaged, that our kids are actually graduating from high school, going into college, going into trade schools, and developing that educational pipeline that companies look for. Because see, when companies come here and they invest, they bring quality jobs. And those quality jobs create quality paychecks. And so I want to make sure that I work with ACCD to make sure that we continue to assist the students. I mean, there's free tuition out there, so there is no excuse for students not to study. We've got to make sure that our parents force them, and I'm talking about force them to go to school, not allow them to drop out, because that is the biggest problem we have right now is our educational attainment situation where our kids aren't graduating, and if they are graduating, they're going into low-wage jobs, low-skill jobs, which don't pay much. And let me tell you, people are living paycheck to paycheck in this community, and that has to stop. And so the only way to do it is through aggressive economic development. Bringing in companies. I have the experience. I did that for the state of Texas. I was the chief economic development officer for the state of Texas when I was Secretary of State. I traveled the world promoting Texas, bringing companies here. But for whatever reason, they didn't want to come to San Antonio. They're going to Austin and Dallas and Houston, and guess what? They're taking our kids and grandkids with them, and that's not fair.
You know what hurts our pipeline of talent, whether pipeline of talent to the military, pipeline of talent to college, pipeline of talent into the trades? Attacks on our public education system. And so this voucher scam that just passed, from all of the information, look across the country, 80% of the benefits of these types of things have gone to people whose kids are already in private school. We should not be subsidizing private school. And so look, it's really important. When I think about economic development, I want to bring good jobs here to San Antonio. San Antonio is the 21st largest manufacturing exporting region in the country. That's great. San Antonio Manufacturing Association. I was just with the South Texas Business Partnership today. Hey, let's go from 21 to 17 to 14. That's great. But you know what? We also need to grow our economy? Doctors. And so when I read that OBGYNs don't want to come to Texas, they don't want to study here because they're so fearful of what could happen, that's also an economic issue. We need doctors in our community, and that's critical to our economy.
So, in order to have doctors in the community, we need to be able to bring companies that are going to create jobs. We need to be able to bring that investment that is going to allow us to educate our doctors, but we also have to make sure they stay here and not go anywhere else. Because that's what's happening is we're educating. We have more students here, more college students in Austin. But guess what? They're leaving because they don't find those jobs that should be available for them. And so the number one focus of eradicating poverty is aggressive economic development, and that is based on workforce development.
Dr. Menadas, I want to say, look, when you read these articles about why OBGYNs don't want to come to Texas, they're not saying it's because there aren't enough corporations. Okay, they're saying it's because I am fearful that I'm not going to be able to practice medicine the way that their oath requires them to practice it. Okay, what have we seen in our community as a result of these abortion bans? Increased sepsis in our community, right? A real increase as well in people that are almost losing their fertility, being brought to the brink of death. Those are healthcare issues. Those are economic issues. Those are public safety issues, right? So as a leader, we've got to speak truth to power about these things that not only make us less safe, but also hurt our economy. And you know what also is important when we think about bringing corporations here? Making sure that we are a community that is welcoming of everybody. I myself am a member of the LGBTQ community, and so when we have laws that show that we don't respect everybody in our community, that makes us less competitive to bring those corporations. We also, at the Department of the Air Force, we always looked at, hey, how welcoming is that community going to be? Because we want our airmen and our guardians to be happy and their families to be happy. Corporations are looking at the same factors. So it's not just, bringing a company here. You've got to look at all the things that are impacting their desire to come here, and it's all of that.
Amen. This next question will be posed to Ms. Ortiz-Jones. Both of you, of course, but first to Ms. Ortiz-Jones. Due primarily to several instances of ethical violations by several former and current members of City Council, San Antonio voters last year approved a new ethics review board, as we both know, and related measures. These were meant to ensure accountability of our elected officials. So the question is, what does ethics in government mean to you, and how will you apply that to yourself as mayor and your colleagues on the council?
Public service is a high calling, and I, to this day, am guided by the core values that I learned in the Air Force. Integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do, right? I think it's really important, because look, at the end of the day, transparency leads to accountability, and accountability leads to trust, right? Folks have to trust that folks that are elected are going to have their back. Which is why on my first 100 days, one of the things I really want to make sure we have a better understanding of is more information around Project Marble. I'm very concerned that a potential multi-billion-dollar project was under wraps for over 1.5 years due to non-disclosure agreements. Okay, look, taxpayers should not be last to know and first to pay. That's not how this works. So we need to make sure, hey, let's understand. I worked in the intelligence community. I know there's a way in which you can protect information, but also make sure that those that need to have the information have it. So I was very concerned to hear when some elected said, hey, I didn't know anything about that. Because if the elected doesn't know, then that means the people don't know. And because, look, people have Google, right? They remember, especially on these publicly financed sports venues, they remember the promise around the Alamo Dome. Hey, let's use public money. Let's build the Alamo Dome. That'll make us competitive for an NFL team. The Brahmas are cool. That is not an NFL team, right? Nelson Wolf, what did he say? Hey, the deal that he negotiated was an exchange for public money to build the AT&T Center. We were supposed to get 20% of Spurs revenue. He said, ask me how much we got over 20 years. 0. So it's really important that we, San Antonio, get a good deal, and it starts with transparency. How much is it going to cost? Who's going to pay? What's the benefit to the community? Now let's start talking and having a conversation. But I think transparency starts with having those basic access to that information.
What was the question, please?
The question is about ethics, and what would you do, what does ethics mean to you, ethics in government mean to you, and how will you apply that to yourself and to your colleagues on the city council if you're in office?
So I've run 3 state agencies, one of them being a law enforcement agency, and so I've seen corruption at its finest. It exists. It's there. Okay? In purchasing, and there's other forms of corruption in using power to your advantage as a bureaucrat. It's all over the place. Okay? What we need stricter enforcement. We need tougher rules for ethics violations. And right now, for instance, some of these ethics codes that we have here, they don't have any teeth. Nothing happens to you. Again, going back to the whole issue of being soft on crime, we're soft on unethical behavior. We need transparency, not only in purchasing, in contracting in the city, but we also need transparency in how power is abused, because abuse of power is also a form of corruption. And you see it everywhere. You see it not only at the city level, but also at the state and federal level. So we have to make sure that as leaders, we lead by example. And that's why I've always asked, take a look at our background. Run a background check on us. Make sure you understand who we are as your leaders. Because look, 15,000 employees at the city have to fill out job applications. They have to go through background checks. And you don't ask that of us. So we have to ask that of our leaders. We remember George Soros, or George, what's his name, Santos, right? George Santos proved to us that you can run for office and nobody check up on you. So I urge you, look at our backgrounds, understand who we are, check and cross-reference what we're saying about who we are, because that is where it starts. We have to lead by example. And look, my life is an open book. I'm purely transparent, and so I invite you to take a look at me so that you can all make sure that I can lead by example. Thank you.
No.
All right, the next question will be to Mr. Pablos then. This is a question about city infrastructure investment. The city infrastructure investment in support of institutions of higher education. UTSA has had projects on San Antonio's recent city bond initiatives, including for athletic facilities. San Antonio College is a 100-year-old institution. So my question is, would you support a bond investment package for the San Antonio College community in the next city bond for things like major street improvements, sidewalk infrastructure, public lighting, walking accessibility, and other connectivity projects as a complement to the newly approved Alamo College's bond?
Well, that's a lot to unpackage, but let me just tell you this right now. San Antonio is the most indebted city in the state of Texas. We are taking on way too much debt. $14,000 per person. What that means is that we're indebting our children and their children, and that's not fair to them. And I haven't seen a single plan for debt eradication in City Hall. So before we go and talking about bonds and more spending and more indebtedness, why don't we start tackling the debt that we have? It's like credit card debt. It's eating us alive. Do you know that we spend over $450 million on interest payments? Wow. A year. That means that all the revenue we take from CPS Energy, we just hand it over to the bondholders. We do have a tremendous need for infrastructure, and we certainly don't want more rate increases at SAWS and CPS. I'm a former public utility commissioner. I understand about utilities, and I can go in there and I can help fix the situation both at SAWS CPS Energy, so that we can make sure that our infrastructure is in place. But we cannot go out there and just get into debt or even ask our children and grandchildren to pay for it. We have to cut costs, we have to look at efficiencies before we start getting into debt.
I think it's important when we're looking at, again, major investments, given the economic uncertainty and the money that we may not see in our own community, we're being very thoughtful about, okay, who is suffering right now? Who are we not meeting the needs for? And how can we work, again, with the county to ensure we're meeting those needs? Just because the money goes away doesn't mean that those needs go away. But we do have to make sure that we're making smart investments in the infrastructure that allow a place like San Antonio College to continue to attract good talent, right? People can make choices about where they go to school, but also the communities that they live in. And people are increasingly talking about, quality of life. So let's look at where we are with the financial situation, working with the city staff. Let's look at the numbers about where does it make the most sense? Where does our dollar go the furthest, right? Is it early childhood education? Is it some of these infrastructure projects? Because again, we are a city that, again, is very focused on the next generation and supporting great institutions like San Antonio College. But I think we've got to look at the data and figure out what is going to be in the best interest of your taxpayer dollars.
Very good. Next question will go to Ms. Ortiz Jones then. Urban growth, you kind of already addressed this a little. Urban growth and development are very much in the news due to the proposed Project Marvel. How do you plan on balancing the needs of residents and businesses in the impacted areas with the need for growth and development of the city and our urban core?
Well, again, as I shared, I think we need some pretty basic information. How much is it going to cost? Who is going to pay? And what is the benefit to the community? Again, in light of how these have traditionally gone, but also in light of the needs in our own community, right? I mean, is there a world in which something like Project Marvel that is potentially uses public dollars, could that generational investment help us address our generational inequities? Is there a way in which that can help us fund our pre-K for SA program from now to eternity? Right, this is the time for us to be bold in how we ask, because we always show up and make sure we uphold our part of this bargain. That hasn't necessarily been the case with some of these publicly financed sports venues. So I want to make sure we get a good deal. I know my opponent feels differently. I know my opponent believes we should fund up to 50% of the Spurs' new arena, based on what he shared with the San Antonio Express News. Again, when we don't have the information about how much it'll cost and who it's going to benefit, I think we should not be putting numbers out there that way. And again, this is an important time to make sure that we are asking tough questions in light of the needs in our community. And I would do that as your next mayor.
So the reason people don't like to run for office is because of the lies that are being thrown at them. Here's the thing. First and foremost, we have parts of town. I've been to parts of town that'll break your heart. No sidewalks, loose dogs, flooding. Why haven't we been taking care of those things all along? We can't go on this way. We have to take care of these parts of the community that need the help. Okay? Now, going back to Project Marvel, let me tell you what. The first thing you need to ask yourself is, do we want to keep the Spurs or not? The Spurs are a $500 million a year economic impact of the city. We have to make sure we consider that first, because, see, the city of Seattle played that game and they lost the Sonics to Oklahoma City, and they lost all of that economic impact. And I'm not saying that we need to be funding the arena with public money. We have to make sure that we look at best practices. What are other communities doing? But we can't be sticking it to the taxpayer.
So this is a questionnaire that the San Antonio Express News put out, and his answer to that question is very clear, and I would encourage you to go look that up for yourself.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, did you answer that questionnaire?
I didn't answer it. You know why? No, hey. That questionnaire said, hey, how much do you want to pay for this? Well, what are we getting? So I said, I'm not going to answer that question if I don't have all the data, right? So, because look, if I give you $1 and you give me $45 back, that's a great deal. But if I give you $1 and you give me 75 cents back, that's a terrible deal. So we need some basic information before we pony up taxpayer dollars for something else. Rolando Pablos said, hey, sure, yeah, 50%. I don't know what it is, who's going to benefit, but no, if I don't have that information, I'm not going to pony it up.
I see a pattern of dodging questions, dodging the media, and look, here's another example.
Rolando, how did you answer that questionnaire? What percentage? Tell him.
Well, first and foremost, we have to address the issue of you not answering the period. So here we go. I'm happy to answer. Here's how I plan to. May I speak, please? May I speak? Let's be courteous. Thank you. We don't know anything about this project because we've been kept in the dark. We don't know anything. Everything's been done behind closed doors, okay, under non-disclosure agreements. So no one can tell you what this project's even going to look like. What I'm saying here is we need to take a look at best practices in other cities. How have they done it, okay? But here's the thing. I brought billions of dollars of private investment to the state of Texas, and I will do that here. And I have said this. I will focus on bringing in private monies to handle that. Now, with respect to the public-private partnership that we see in other places, look, the Spurs need to pay up. They have to make sure, we have to make sure that the Spurs pay up. But we will not use taxpayer money. We will use visitor money, okay, that will be generated by the same project that's bringing in visitors up to 50%. That's not your money. And that's not taxpayer money, and that's my answer. But, by the way, I answered the questionnaire in its entirety. There are other questions in there that were also asked that weren't addressed by my competitor here.
We'll close this down. It's good dialogue, so I'm going to let it go a little bit. Go ahead.
It is your money. You know why? Because that money could be invested in other things in our community. Okay, so let's be very clear about that. And he just said he doesn't know how much it's going to cost, but he's willing to give up 50% to pay for that. That doesn't make sense, right? The math doesn't math. So let's answer some very basic questions and then have a thoughtful discussion about how this benefits our community.
Thank you both for that very much. Appreciate that. The next question will go to Mr. Pablos. It is about affordable housing. Safe and affordable housing is a priority in every big city. And it's going to be something that's going to be at the forefront for you as mayor if you are elected. What tangible steps will you take to increase affordable housing in this city?
I've laid out my taxpayer protection blueprint, which includes freezing your property taxes the same way the city of Fort Worth and the city of El Paso have done it. It's called a no new revenue tax rate. And basically what this does is it tells our city manager that he cannot budget for next year on the anticipated tax increase. He's got to live within his means. And that gives us all a taxpayer timeout. That is one first step in making sure that we can afford our homes. We have senior citizens losing their homes. Okay, they're going to their children's homes to live. They're couch surfing because they've been kicked out of their homes. We have to bring down our property taxes. We have to put a cap on them to make sure that we all get a break. The other thing is workforce housing. Workforce housing is extremely important, especially in the north part of town. We can't have people traveling hours back and forth every day to work. We have to make sure that they live close to their work, because that is the way that we get them off the streets, we eliminate most of the traffic, and we have to work with our developers too. I'm not going to carry the water for developers. They have to make the case to those communities so that those communities and the developers can agree on what that affordable housing is going to look like. But look, it's a supply and demand issue. We have to make sure that we have enough supply to be able to have the right pricing for everybody to afford it. But here's the kicker. The best way to make housing affordable is to bring great paying jobs to this community.
Housing affordability, affordable housing is very personal to me. One of my earliest memories is sharing a queen-size bed, me, my mom, my grandmother, and my sister, as we waited for our Section 8 voucher. So I know how important it is, the criticality of housing that is affordable to allow any other thing in your life, which is why I'm so focused on making sure that we are being thoughtful and are being very bold and aggressive in building more housing that is affordable. On my website, I have said first 100 days, I want to go faster on a couple of kinds of projects, right? Projects that are 70 to 100% affordable. And we can make sure we define that correctly, because if we're not using federal money, then we don't need to account for how New Braunfels what New Braunfels thinks is affordable. We need to think about what's affordable in our community. If it's 70% to 100% affordable, if it co-locates childcare, and if it helps us meet our transit-oriented objectives, city staff, help me understand how can we go faster? These are the things that our community is saying they need, and let's try to address these holistically, because somebody doesn't only have a housing challenge, they also have potentially a childcare challenge and a transit challenge. Housing affordability is also really important. When I was talking to some of the leaders of SAISD and all these schools that have closed, I said, hey, how could the city have helped you? And they said affordable housing, right? There's so many families that are moving out of those areas because they can't afford the housing, which means there's not enough kids for those schools, which means those schools close. So being very deliberate and intentional about building more affordable housing in areas so that we are not closing these schools, and we've got affordable housing for those teachers is important. So affordable housing would be a priority for me, because it's not only good for the people that need that housing, but it also has an impact on public education and making sure that, look, if somebody is working downtown as the valet at Hotel Valencia, or is working cleaning staff at the hospital there, they shouldn't have to drive 45 minutes to almost Medina County just to afford something, right? We need to be thoughtful and make sure that our downtown doesn't go the way of Austin, which is just a place that rich people live. A leader will have to drive that and make sure we've got housing for working people. It's really important that we are being thoughtful about this, and it can't just be a bunch of luxury townhomes, luxury condos, and workforce housing, right? It's important that we are diverse in that supply, and I'll make sure that it is.
Very good. This issue is maybe not the biggest issue in the world, but it's certainly a problem here in San Antonio, and it has to do with animal control. As you know, our city has a problem with dangerous dog attacks. What is your unique approach to addressing the dangerous dog problem in San Antonio? This is to Ms. Ortiz-Jones.
As I've talked with neighborhood associations, as well as kind of people all throughout our city, there is concern that ACS is not sufficiently meeting the need in our community, and unfortunately we're reading too many stories about people being attacked. I think it's important. I know we have a new director at ACS, and I know that person is working very hard to institute some changes to make sure that people feel safe in their neighborhoods. So I think what I'd like to do in that initial time as mayor is look at what is working, what have you instituted, what isn't working at this point, but how can we also make sure that we're adequately meeting the need in our community. Part of that may also be maybe ACS needs longer hours, right? It's no longer just kind of a one shift operation. It may need to operate longer so people can report those. There's also going to be much stronger enforcement, right, when people are not being compliant and are not being good pet owners. So I know that that's a public safety issue, and I know there's also a way in which we might be able to be more efficient with the ACS resources that we have, and I would prioritize that.
I think the first thing we need to address is the compassion for these pets. We have to make sure that we're not putting so many pets down every year, because that's what's happening. And it's because of irresponsible pet owners. We have to make sure that we work with our community, with our pet owners. We need to sterilize the strays, all of them. They need to be sterilized immediately. That way, we don't have this problem happening all the time. And we cannot scapegoat our city department. They've got their hands full. They need more funding because they're all over the place. A lady told me the other day she came home and couldn't get out of her car because there were dogs around her. They were circling her car. and she was scared. We have to address that. We need a specialized enforcement unit that goes out there. This is the same problem we have with crime. There are no consequences to the actions. Right now, there's nothing that happens unless some dog kills someone. That's really when the DA steps in. But for all these other things that are happening, there's really no repercussions to the pet owners. So we have to address the irresponsible pet owners. We have to have a dangerous dog task force that goes out and addresses them. And then when you have all these stray dogs, there's hot spots of these stray dogs. We have to be able to go out there. And then we have to put a time clock on addressing the calls, because right now those calls do not go addressed. 311 is not addressing them, and nobody goes out there and checks it out. So we got to put at least a 72-hour time clock on a shot clock on this issue, because otherwise we're going to continue to perpetuate the problem. It's incredible that we haven't been able to find a solution for this. It's not that hard.
Very good. The 10th portion I have for you, the final one that I have, is about the big issue, crime. Crime, other public safety issues, homeless complaints, these are important to voters, and every poll shows that. Both of you have highlighted public safety as a priority if you're elected. What do you see as our biggest crime and public safety challenges, and what will be your approach to address them? And this is to Mr. Pablos first.
Well, like I said earlier, in 1967 when I was born, the poverty rate in the city was 18%. Today it's 18%. Nothing has changed. And it's that poverty that's the condition that is driving all these problems that we have, especially crime. So you can't have anybody tell you that they're going to go address crime and homelessness and all these problems that we have, public health, without having a plan to first address poverty once and for all. I can't imagine why we haven't been able to address this problem effectively. We live in a city with over 300,000 people living in poverty, and half of them are children. Do we really want that legacy? So why haven't we done anything about it? I am committed to tackling the poverty problem, because once we do that, all those other things are going to be alleviated. Maybe not overnight, but if we don't even start, how do we expect to tackle those things? And with respect to crime, we lost 4 tourists downtown last summer, killed. Okay, 18,000 cars were stolen last year, with only 150 arrests. So there are so many issues, there's so many problems. I want to go into that police department. I want to get in there and analyze why is it that we haven't been able to deliver. And I would hate to think that it's on purpose.
I'm going to broaden my answer just a little bit, because yes, it's crime, but I think when we think about supporting our first responders, we also have to think about our firefighters and our EMS. 80% of the things that they respond to, that our fire department responds to, is medically related, right? So it's, in general, how are we making sure that we're best meeting the public health needs, the public safety needs of our community. I was very proud to sit down with the San Antonio Police Union and hear directly from them what they need, what they think is working well, how we can ensure we are recruiting good talent into the force. And I would continue to make sure we have those conversations. As a senior leader at the Pentagon, one of the things that we always focused on is readiness. It's not just do we have enough people, but are they trained appropriately? Do they have the resources? Are they ready to go? If you have 10 trucks and only 8 of them work, then you don't have 10 trucks, right? That's the type of level of detail, the type of management, leadership experience. I look forward to making sure we've got public safety resources that are really there to address the needs.
So during this entire campaign, I've submitted my pledge to the police department and to the fire department. And in that pledge, I laid out 10 points for each one of them. And the very first one is that I pledge to get involved in their collective bargaining to make sure that they get a fair shake when they're negotiating with the city. Okay? As mayor, I will get involved where in the past that hasn't happened. The other thing is I will make sure that we push back on any negativity that is said about the police and fire department. We have to stand up for them. And look, we also have to make sure that we address the suicide problem because we have a mental health issue that no one is really addressing effectively. There's so many problems. We have a police force that's demoralized. They go to work thinking that they're not appreciated. I want happy police officers. I want them engaged with our community. Our Safe Officer program is working. Let's expand that.
Great. Well, those are the questions I have. We did get some questions online from some students here at San Antonio College. And the two questions, some of them we've already covered, but two of them are related to economic development and growth. And the first one I'm going to ask Ms. Ortiz-Jones is, the student asked, DFW Metro has 24 Fortune 500 companies. Houston has 22. San Antonio has 2. What is your plan to make this city competitive with other large metros in the state, and where does Project Marvel fit into that plan?
I think it's really important that we are bringing as many good jobs here as possible. As mentioned, San Antonio, we're the 21st largest manufacturing exporting region in the country. This is absolutely an area that I look forward to working with the state on. Not only do we have to have the north-south infrastructure to support the growth there, as well as the east-west infrastructure. I also want to make sure that we are adequately getting our share of the pie when it comes to the Texas Economic Development Fund, that piggy bank that they've got that helps to bring corporations here to Texas. Happy to work on each of those things. I also want to make sure that we really lean into the advantages that we have as Military City USA. How can we bring more military missions here? How can we also, when the governor says, hey, I want a cyber command in San Antonio, I just worked on many of these issues. We have a great cadre of talent at 16th Air Force. I think it's also really important we support the civilian aspect of that and really make sure that we're leaning into that. Making sure we're also doing as much as we can with the space industry. I was just with the South Texas Business Partnership earlier, and that's an area that they really want to see grow. As the Undersecretary of the Air Force, that's what I worked on. How do we make sure we're being smart with these investments, but there's a whole commercial side of that as well that we have a natural advantage of, so I would work to make sure we're bringing those kinds of missions, as well as really collaborating with many of the folks, many of the counties south of us, because again, we are a hub. We've got to be intentional with our investments and make sure we're bringing those corporations, not only for manufacturing, but also for cyber. And again, the partnership, the merger rather, with UT Health Science Center and with UTSA, that's another great opportunity for corporations to come and look at how we as a city are growing. But also, I think people want to know, what is the quality of life in San Antonio? What is the state of your public education system? How the impact of vouchers, right? Making sure that we've got enough pre-K for SA, make sure we've got enough child care, et cetera. So I have a very broad understanding of the economic challenges and opportunities, and I look forward to leading on those as your next mayor.
Well, it's one thing to have a broad understanding, it's another thing to actually have done it. I've done this for 25 years. As Secretary of State, I brought in 15 Fortune 500 headquarters to Texas. That is a lot of investment coming in this country. I travel the world bringing investment here, and I will do it for San Antonio. It's not that hard. We have to make sure that you have a mayor that is out there selling San Antonio the same way I used to sell Texas. And look, I travel all over the world. And let me tell you, when I told them I was from San Antonio, they knew one thing about us, and that was the San Antonio Spurs. Okay? We have to make sure that we are recognized as a world leader. We have the opportunity to be on the global stage. We just haven't taken it. And we have forgotten about Mexico. Mexico will become a global power. They are our #1 trade partner, and we're allowing Austin, Dallas, and Houston to take that from us. We're losing that. I have the experience. I can bring investment here. Economic development is extremely important because that is what brings those quality jobs. That is what's going to help us expand the tax base so we can share the tax burden with new companies that are going to come here and buy buildings, and their employees are going to buy homes and go to HEB and buy groceries. All those things are important. Right now, we're going in a different direction. We're losing companies. We lost New Star. Okay? Whataburger's lease is up next year. We keep going backwards. And like I said earlier, When companies look at San Antonio, for whatever reason, they're not selecting us. They're going to Austin, Dallas, Houston, even Corpus and El Paso. We can't have that. And what you need is you need a mayor with experience, someone who's actually done it, and that is me.
When corporations are thinking about where they're going to put a headquarters, not unlike the Department of the Air Force, they want to understand, hey, what's going to be the quality of life of the people that are there? Are we going to be able to keep our people and recruit good folks? One of the things that Rolando hasn't talked about that he did as Secretary of State is when Trump did the voting commission. When he did the voting commission, he asked for, hey, send me very personal voting information, right? There was a lawsuit that was put forward that said if that information is shared, it could lead to voter intimidation. Other Republican secretaries of state said, we're not going to do that. Rolando Pablos was willing to do it until a district judge said, do not do that. So let's be very clear about what it takes to keep our community and our city safe. Yes, we need businesses to come here, but businesses are not going to come here if they don't think that their folks are going to be able to engage in voting, for example, or have somebody that is willing to bend the knee for Greg Abbott at every turn.
Those are great talking points, but let me tell you the reality of it. The information we released was publicly available information. So, in these lawsuits that everybody keeps talking about, the state of Texas, it requires for the Secretary of State to be the defendant at all times. So when I got sued as Secretary of State, not as a person. So let's make all that clear. And I don't know what that has to do with economic development. Let me tell you this much. It was a good opportunity to swipe that in. But look, let me tell you what. This is exactly why good people don't run for offices, because of the lies. Okay? And look, I've lived through this. Desperate attacks don't work.
It does matter how the next mayor thinks about your voting rights. That is important. And I think a good indicator of what you will do is what you have done. If it was okay, then you wouldn't have needed the lawsuit, the need for that. So I think let's be very clear. Let's not fool ourselves, right, about what is at stake in our community.
I want to see if there's any students in the audience who would like to come forward and ask some questions. Yes, sir. We got one in the back. Can we get a mic back there, please? We're running very efficiently on time, so we appreciate the candidates bearing with us and being so efficient in their answers. Thank you.
I guess I could just say from here, because hello, my name is Tony Guerrero. I'm 5 years old. I'm a non-traditional student here at St. Antonio College. I'm visually impaired, legally blind. I'm saying perspective, y'all both brought up the issue about safety for the community. Specifically as a pedestrian, almost 4 years ago, I was hit by a car, and I was grateful that they admitted that they were a distracted driver. Specifically off Ashby and Howard, there are no sidewalks, so the police did take that in the report. But I want to address the issue about the crosswalks, specifically on McCullough down the street, on Dewey, and also on Woodline. As a pedestrian, when you punch the button, it gives you 10 seconds to cross. The situation is when, as a pedestrian, you're crossing, the cars on the opposite side start to try to take an automatic right turn while I have the right to cross. I contacted 311 years ago. It just seems like it was one of those being sent everywhere, and it was just like, who does this issue need to be addressed to? And they said, well, this is we got to get hold of the city council. So with a new fresh start, I just want to know, as y'all both brought up the safety and concern for the community as a pedestrian, would this be something y'all would look into for the infrastructure, as y'all both mentioned about the safety for the community?
Thank you for asking that. I think it's really important. that when we are making investments, when we're making policies, we are considering the needs of our disabled community. I'd have to specifically look at the data that you're speaking of, but of course, public safety is so important. I just, one of our super volunteers, as you will, is Michelle, and Michelle is deaf. And she has been very clear about, unfortunately, the challenges she has experienced as a deaf person. And for example, when first responders don't know how to engage with a deaf person. So I think it's really important when we're thinking about public safety that the officers and those disabled in our community understand that there's going to be a certain level of service and prioritization to make sure everybody feels safe in our community. But thank you for raising that, and it's something, again, as we look at the next bond, that we can make investments that are cognizant of the unique challenges that our differently abled folks have in our community. Thank you.
I would be willing to volunteer, no pun intended, as my point of view, like with, if somebody was to say, what is it like to, to punch if y'all have maybe one of your campaign parties go and experience themselves, how it is when you try to cross.
Let's let Mr. Pablos have a chance to address this.
So my wife Laura and I are blessed to have a daughter with special needs. Mia, she just turned 18, she has Down syndrome, and I can't tell you the countless times that we've spent fighting for Mia, fighting for her rights. You would think that everything is set up for our disabled community, but you've just laid out one tiny example of the problems we have when we do not address the needs of our disabled community. I've sat on the board of Morgan's Wonderland. I still sit on the board of Texas Special Olympics. So again, I'm not just talking about it, I live it every day. Right now we're having an issue with Mia's school that we're having to address. Imagine those parents don't have the wherewithal, okay, to go to those schools and put up a fight. So what you need a mayor who lives it every day and understands it, and I will commit to you that there will be funds segregated for these particular issues. Thank you.
Yeah, I respect the lived experience. My own mother taught at Harlandale High School, 25 years, kids with special needs. It's not just about having the experience, it's about having the courage to call folks out when they are making it harder in our community. So, for example, at the federal level, when they're defunding Department of Education, right? All of those things that are so important, providing oversight in our community, when you're defunding public education, even at the state level. There's a lot of kids that, are not lucky enough to call their dad the Secretary of State, and they need those resources in that school. Right? So we've got to support those folks. I would be a mayor that is very vocal at the federal level and the state level about how we can support all kids. All kids.
Dr. Mazzucca over there has another student has a question.
Okay, we got a student over here. You can go ahead and state your name and let us know what your question is.
Good afternoon, y'all. My name is Nathan Salceda. I serve as student body president at Sachs Men Empowerment Network here at San Antonio College. In 2022 alone, 25% of Latinos earned an associate's degree or higher, compared to the Asian students at 64%, white at 47%, and African American students at 30%. While education and educational attainment trends have increased over the last decade, how will you work to continue in supporting higher education institutions to increase these trends so that the black and brown students at animal colleges graduate with a family, sustaining wage and credentials, and the city of San Antonio can build on competitive workforce?
Ms. Ortiz, you want to start? Ortiz Jones, you want to start?
Sure. It's not lost on me. Well, thank you for your question as well, return to you. It's not lost on me that when you ask this question, we have this very beautiful mural behind us of the diversity of our community. And so I think it's important, and I, as your next mayor, would talk about how a tax on diversity, equity, and inclusion, specifically as it relates to public education and higher education, what that means for the first generation students in our community, right? Those for the first time that are working with their parents to fill out the FAFSA form or are trying to think, okay, how many credits can I take as I also work? I think it's really important that we are being thoughtful about standing up and helping people understand that when you are doing away, when you attack these policies that are there to help those that are traditionally have been underrepresented in higher education, as your statistics point out, if we take away some of those policies that are there to help people, we actually are hurting our own community. Right? Which is why I, again, want to not only do what you just described, which is how can we better support the Alamo Promise. I think it's wonderful that our moderator here, a graduate from East Central, is attending here on Alamo Promise. I had the privilege of speaking with her earlier. That's a program we need to make sure people are very aware of, on top of doing the other things like protecting public education, making sure we're investing in things like pre-K for SA. So I think this is really a continuum and so key to our economic strength. Thank you.
I think as a leader, you have to lead by example. And so I know what it's like to have to work and study. I know what it's like for families to have to decide whether their children should work or go to school. And that is happening in our community. And you hit it right on the head when you talk about the Asian community coming in here and after one generation producing college graduates. So I think we ought to take a look at what they're doing. What is it that they're doing correctly so that we could go ahead and follow suit? Now I'll tell you what, I want to work with parents, because especially single parents, because I know how difficult it is for parents to come home tired and then have to do homework with the kids. We have to make sure that we address that issue. We got to go to the root of the problem. And right now, it's not our teachers that we we have to scapegoat. My wife is a public school teacher. I know the trouble that she has to go through every day. But the parents have to get involved. But I also understand sometimes they can't. So we want to be able to help those parents get involved, make sure that their kids have everything that they need, and then also that the parents have everything they need to understand the process. My parents didn't speak English, so they weren't able to get involved. I had to make it up as I go. So I've also experienced that situation where my parents couldn't get involved. They couldn't help me with my homework. So we have to be able to help those kids in those situations, and I think that's the way that we begin to get out of that rut.
Let me just say, as a member of the Asian American community, you know what we did? We studied hard. And how was I able to do that? Because I had a quality Title I public education, which is why I know it's so important that we do not defund public education with this voucher scam. We invest in things like pre-K for SA, because you and I, we've lived a life. You either pay at the front or you pay at the end, right? I would argue we wouldn't need so much of the Ready to Work program if we had more pre-K for SA. So let's be very clear about what it takes, but then also look at the things that I support and will look forward to implementing, and that my opponent has not yet outlined when it comes to public education. Why? Because Governor Abbott supports these vouchers, the voucher scam that is going to increase class sizes, raise property taxes, and have unclear outcomes on our educational system.
A student wants to ask a question over here.
Thank you very much.
Public transportation is vital for equitable access to jobs, education, and healthcare. What is your plan to improve and expand on public transportation in our city, especially for underserved neighborhoods?
Mr. Pablos, want to start?
So for economic development, public transportation is extremely important. We have to make sure that we get people from point A to point B. We have to make sure that we can help people get to work, get to school. And right now in San Antonio, we have a situation where we might not be doing it the right way. So I want to make sure that we provide the public transportation that is needed in the method that it's required. Because a lot of times you see these buses that are empty going back and forth, and I ask myself, is that really the most efficient way of doing it? You know, I know that we've gone to more of a model like we see, you know, in other communities with these rapid transit lanes that we have. Well, we're going to give that a try. Let's see if it works, right? And I don't know that it will. You know, especially we're seeing that they're taking land, they're crowding lanes. I don't know if that's the best way of doing it, but we do have to have a solution for it. I think we just have to be smarter about how we go about doing it. And just because it's federal money doesn't mean that we have to spend it.
When I think of public transportation, I also think, oh, here we go, thanks. When I think of public transportation, I think about, again, our ability to be competitive in bringing and keeping talent here. Because folks can go to other places where public transit is an actual option, right? And you don't have to have a car, you're gonna have voting right? You're gonna have other things. So we have to think about public transit as something that is, people actually want to take. Right now, what I hear is that it's too frequent. It's too infrequent, excuse me, and it's not convenient. But if we're serious about addressing the congestion in our community, if we're serious also about addressing the emissions challenge, I mean, one of the main reasons our kids in Texas miss school is asthma, then we've got to be thinking about how can we use everything to address these challenges and help people have an affordable, safe, reliable way to get to work. I think it's also really important that we're thinking about public transit in terms of figuratively and literally connecting communities that we know are where that demand is going to grow. So for example, I was just on the south side earlier, and the Brooks, the huge complex there, we've got to make sure we're thinking about public transit and connecting large communities like that. So that is an option that they always think about. It's not something that folks are just never considering because it's inconvenient.
Any more students who want to ask questions?
Any other student questions? I see a bunch of
I
students
got
in the
one
audience.
Here we go. We're just going to take students.
Only the young could talk, okay, not the older people.
We got a student walking
Here we
out.
go.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you
he's
both
good.
for coming. I appreciate it. Again, untraditional student here at San Antonio College, so since you briefly mentioned vouchers, since it's a reality that we're all going to have to navigate, how would either of you ensure San Antonio operates optimally in that voucher environment?
Ms. Ortiz, Jones, you want to start?
I think it's really important that we are understanding how this is impacting our community in real time. And when our school leaders, all of the superintendents are talking about the impacts of that, we, I think as a city, have to really look at the data and say, okay, this is what it looks like 6 months after it's been implemented, 12 months after it's been implemented. If this continues, what is this going to look like in 5 years? What is this going to look like in 15 years? And I think having been, again, somebody that has thought about long-term challenges, but also opportunities in our community, that's how we have to understand the consequences. The other thing, though, is that we can look at how this has been implemented in other states and what it has done to those communities, so we can try to prevent some of those things as best able. Unfortunately, the reality is very clear, and the data shows very clearly in other states where the vouchers have been implemented, that 80% of the benefits of that have gone to families where those kids were already in private school, right? So they just got a tax credit, a credit there. We have also seen the consequences of that. They have shown us you have larger classroom sizes. I mean, Northside ISD, they've already talked about increasing the child-student ratio to teachers. That's very, I mean, that is a challenge to recruit teachers, to keep the teachers that we've got. I think it's really important. We also understand Texas has a unique role when it comes to public education in our country. 1 in 10 kids in this country lives in Texas. So if we do not get our public education system right, it is in fact a national security issue. And I saw this firsthand as the undersecretary, where we were dealing, unfortunately, with a recruiting crisis, as well as folks not being academically prepared.
It is a state.
So, I'm trying to answer it, ma'am. So,
Please be respectful of the candidate's time.
So, this whole voucher system fight that is going on is focused on allowing parents to select where their kids will go to school, but the devil is in the details. Well, how is that going to work? You know, if a single mother on the south side wants to send their child to the north side, how are they going to get that child there? How are they going to participate in after-school activities? I haven't seen that, so I still have a lot of questions about it. I do believe that competition is good, and I also believe that we need to fix our public school system. We have to look at results. Okay? Now, is this the silver bullet? Well, we'll see. We'll find out. But here's the issue, is that if parents aren't allowed to select where they send their kids to school, then they're going to be forced to send them to an underperforming school. Right? Now, this whole issue about guiding financially the school, there's a bill going through the state legislature right now that's going to fund the school. So, you know, don't believe when you're told that the schools are going to be defunded. Let's take a look at that bill and let's analyze it. I am completely opposed to defunding the schools. But I do believe that competition is good and the parents should have a choice.
The data is very clear about who benefits from this. That single mother on the south side, she's not going to be able to make up the difference in that private school education, so that it's not going to benefit her. This is very widely understood. The data is very clear. Look, you can have a mayor that is going to turn a blind eye and think that they don't know how this works, or you can have a mayor that understands critically how important this is to our economy, to our public education, and to our long-term economic strength.
Let's get one final question from a student, if you will.
My name is Jacques Miller. I just want to know which candidate is on God's team and which candidate is on the other team.
Thank you all very much. We want to offer closing statements to the candidates. Keep in mind, this is the first time voters are seeing this binary choice. You know, before it was a messy, confusing ballot of 27 candidates, and so now they finally have a choice to focus on just 2 candidates for a very important office. So as you make your remarks, speak to the people here, of course, and those that are watching online as well, including many students who are watching online. So, Ms. Ortiz-Jones, why don't we start with the closing statement after 3 minutes, if we can, for yourself.
Great. Well, my thanks again to San Antonio College for hosting us. Thank you all for making time. Thank you, voters, for tuning in and making sure that our city is well led. I think when we're thinking about the direction of our city, you really want to make sure that your mayor is ready, has a plan, and as importantly in these times, has the courage to fight for San Antonio, what is in the best interest of our city, and is not going to be, frankly, more beholden to what Governor Abbott wants than is better for the city, right? We know the opportunities, we know our challenges. It's really important we are focused on the long-term economic strength of our community. So I look forward to bringing my record of public service, as well as, please visit my website, GinaOrtizJones.com, the things I want to work on in the first 100 days. None of that is partisan. It is about progress and making sure we've got the data to make sure we are making good investments for the future of our city. I think you've seen here very clearly what I am willing to do, which is call out things that we all know not to be right. It's really important we have leaders that are going to speak truth to power. The data is very clear about some of these challenges on vouchers, right? On housing that's affordable, on public transit, on making sure we get a good deal for our city when they're wanting to use public money for these publicly financed sports venues. Who's going to ask the tough questions? Who's going to push back and make sure, hey, how does this benefit our city? How much is it going to cost? Who's going to benefit? And who's paying, right? Again, taxpayers should not be last to know and first to pay. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got a real opportunity to make sure we've got a mayor that is focused on the city, moving forward with everybody in mind, not just a select few.
Well, thank you again. I'm honored to be here. Look, ever since the beginning of my campaign, I've always talked about unity. Our city is divided. We have 10 districts. We're balkanized. We have 17 school districts. We are split. And what I have consistently talked about is finally coming together to check our ideology and our partisanship at the door. We can't be speaking in terms of us versus them, and that's really what has always happened. Attacks, vilifying people. What about just focusing on what truly matters, which is the welfare of our people, making sure that our people are first, not partisanship, not ideology, but let's come together, and I will do that. I will commit, and I have done so already, to bring our city council together, to bring this community together. We're a beautiful community, but we're divided along partisan lines, along ideological lines, like we've heard tonight. We can't do that. We have to come together, because the more we do this, the further we fall into this hellhole.
Thank you both very much. Let's give a round of applause for both candidates. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. You take care, okay? We'll see you. You hold me to it, because I will forget. So don't make me forget, okay? That's right.
Thank you very much. I'll be in touch.
How does your too? Thank you very much.
¿Dónde has estado?